So,
Like rock and roll, huh?
Sorry.
Chihuahua?
rock and roll in particular. She takes care of rock and roll.
she does rock and roll.
Oh, so she,
Rogers Bark.
She's a musician.
Rogers Bar?
No, I'm the dog groomer.
Oh,
You
okay.
what?
The dog groomer. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
wow.
without further ado, I'm gonna let you speak.
There we go.
I even get a podium. How nice.
Yeah.
So hi guys, my name is Marie. I own Rogers Bark Pet Salon, and today I'm going to wax on a little bit about the value of being proactive as a business owner and taking advantage of opportunities that happen to miraculously occur. So my story a little bit is that I went to the U of I. I was a theater major. When I was down there, I was not expecting to be in this line of work at all. Wound up learning how to groom dogs at a friend's grooming school so that I wouldn't be a starving artist, and came up here to do theater and made money grooming dogs on the side. And then when the previous owner of Rogers Bark decided she wanted to sell her business, I decided to take the opportunity and purchase it from her. So this is not actually at all what I was expecting to do with my life. I have no background in business, and it's been a very educational experience up until this point. But when you don't take into consideration the classes in numbers and things that you have to learn in a college environment, one of the most valuable things that I have learned, taking personal experience into consideration, is how to be proactive and not reactive. And one of the lessons that I learned that at is a grooming shop that I worked at once upon a time in a kingdom far away. I would watch the owners wait for things to happen to them and then get very bent out of shape once those things did happen, because they suddenly had problems that they had to solve. For instance, they would put 30 dogs on average through their shop a day, and they only had 2 dryers that they used on the dogs, and they had 2 bathers using the 2 dryers on the dogs, and that was it. And then 4 days before Christmas, one of those dryers decides to break down. It's 4 days before Christmas, the busiest time of the year for a grooming shop, and they're suddenly down 1 dryer, and they have to pay the overnight fee in the Christmas season to get the dryer in so that they can actually work the next day. Whereas, in my opinion, having a second dryer in the basement that they didn't necessarily need to use would have solved that problem. So it's that idea of always having a backup plan, being proactive, knowing what you need in case something doesn't work, and being able to put that into effect. So a lot of the things that I've been trying to do over the course of the last 5 years is addressing problems and then figuring out how to solve them. So things like, what happens when we have more dogs in during the day than 2 people can handle and answer phones at the same time? When is it an appropriate point to bring in somebody just to answer phones? When do you actually spend the money and find the value of that sort of thing, and coming up with a plan for how to address those issues? There's never a right answer. One of those things that I learned in my previous education that I find very valuable is the idea that there is no right or wrong, there is what works and what doesn't work. And therefore, when you find something in your life that doesn't work, come up with the answers and how to make it work. Because everybody's going to do it differently, and you have to figure out what works for you. And what works for me is not going to work for the next person down the street. So how this merges into taking opportunities that miraculously appear. In January, we had a pipe burst in my shop. In the ceiling above us, the people in the apartment had moved out, the landlords had turned the thermostat down to 55, we had this big freeze, nobody thought that their toilet would freeze, but it did, and then suddenly I had rain the next warm day that we had coming through my ceiling. And of course, that's a big shock. Landlords are responsible for fixing my ceiling, fixing my floor, it's in my lease, that's great. I'm responsible for everything that got damaged inside, insurance will cover it, it's not a big deal. But instead of just doing things the way we had done them, we decided to take the opportunity, look around us and say, what is not working right now? What do I hate about what I currently have, and how can I fix that and improve it, and therefore make it better? So we took these big ugly shelves that had been blocking my windows for 5 years. We decided that we were going to open the windows. What does it mean to open the windows, and how much retail space are we going to lose as a result? Where can we put new retail space? What can we take away in order to create that new retail space? If I'm going to build these shelves and have them custom, suddenly I don't have the metal that I had before, and I had solved this problem of all of these labels once upon a time that I hated and made these new fantastic magnet labels, and now I don't have magnets anymore. I have wood, so what can I do with wood in order to make these labels work? we're gonna go with chalkboard paint. Like all of these ideas of put it up on the board of what doesn't work and find a solution for how to make it work. And suddenly I have this space that is absolutely fantastically beautiful that people just walk into and can't wait to enjoy, which is really nice. My floor is finally level, which it wasn't before, but that's a whole different mess of affairs. And it was that idea of taking a terrible thing that had happened that made me cry. Of course, I walk up to my shop and it's raining in the ceiling and I'm panicking and going, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And suddenly it's a golden opportunity to fix years worth of problems. I replaced my whole counter. The counter was terrible. There was no storage. I suddenly have storage and zones for things. And it was a really wonderful opportunity, all because of this mindset of constantly looking at what doesn't work. Don't judge it, just figure out how to make it work. So that's pretty fantastic. And that was pretty much all I was going to go on about, is the idea of working and doesn't working and priorities and proactive. Because proactive is really important, in my opinion.
So how long have you owned your shop?
I will have owned it in 5 years in May.
Wow.
Yes.
Where'd you go to school?
University of Illinois.
Oh yeah? Are you from here?
I'm not. I'm originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Yeah. Came up to U of I to study theater and did that, and moved to Chicago because this was going to be the theater city where, you know, I did all of this wonderful storefront amazingness. I worked in theater successfully with the company for quite a while, and every show got worse and worse, and I slowly had my soul sucked out of me.
Oh no.
And I discovered that actually it was because the theater companies I was working for didn't have an infrastructure to support their artists. So at the point, the last show that I did with them, my producers dropped out 2 weeks before the show, and not only was I directing the show, but then my stage manager and I had to produce the show. We had to replace the technicians who decided to quit because the producers weren't paying them. We were suddenly doing the entire piece by ourselves because there was no infrastructure and backup for us as a business. And it's also one of the things that has inspired this proactive and where do you find the infrastructure. From my mindset, most small theaters in the city fail because they're asking too much of their people and nobody has delineated jobs and no infrastructure. So I'm one of those people that I can do everything in my shop. I can do everything that I ask my employees to do. It doesn't mean I can do it all at once, nor should I ask myself to do that. So that's also one of those huge lessons I learned in failure in theater. And I'm very happy where I am now. Any other questions?
No, you know a girl named Mercedes Inez? She is from Albuquerque.
Albuquerque?
Yeah, and she was in theater also. And
Oh, really?
artists that played at the main stage. So I thought maybe you guys might know.
No, not at all. Albuquerque's a fairly large city. It's
Yeah.
the same size as Atlanta, but yeah,
Okay.
not familiar with her.
Well, I'm inspired by your story.
Thank
and, you know, about taking charge. I've had a studio for about 10 years, and maybe longer than 10 years. Got a $76,000 grant and built it up. And,
Wow.
do sound, do professional music recording, everything, live bands, everything. And, as a professional musician, one of the things that I find is that we don't have, as you were saying, the infrastructure to support
Right.
the groups of guys that we have. We have some excellent musicians and artists, in Chicago. But
Right.
we just don't have that type of support that we need to keep this thing going.
It's true, and it's hugely difficult, especially in the arts community, to find people who can be that creative and still maintain that level of business acumen, as you will, and find the brains that can combine it. It's a very rare quality. So finding a space and an environment in which people are looking to do that is super valuable for the artistic community. Yeah, I'm inspired by you. Awesome.
Well, thank you.
We're good.
Thanks.
Thank you.